Hello, and welcome to Indie Encounter. My name is Sandra Laraine Coleman. The mission of our show is to give independent performers and artists access to as wide an audience as possible, and to give you, our viewers, a window into their art, their artistic process, and why they have chosen their particular avenue to connect with the world. All art is about communication and connection. It's in the eyes. She who sees 360 degrees without looking. Lyrically loving living. Got 10 million stories tiptoeing strong in the soul of her knowing. Freedom flowing. Alice the poet. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Sandra. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. Because, you know, we've been trying to do this for a couple months now. But when it's right, when it's time, everything just falls into place.
Yes, it does.
And the first question I have for you. Okay, I know you.
Right.
The audience doesn't know you. What is it like a day in the life of Alice the poet?
Depends on what day of the week it is. It depends on the day of the week. So some of them are early morning rising before the birds. Remember, I told you about a couple of those.
Yes. And
some of them are later mornings and longer nights. But each day incorporates some type of creating, you know, whether that be poetry or working on another story, prose, or work.
Yeah.
Creatively.
Right. And you work with children. You're a tutor, so.
Well, I work with children as an academic tutor, but I also work with children as an artist mentor. All of the youth that I work with are at risk, though. And, or should I say labeled at risk, because I see a lot of promise in them.
Right.
And so even those that I'm tutoring academically, they learn just as well as anybody else. Or those that I'm tutoring creatively, they create beautifully.
Right. But it takes a special person to be able to bring that out of them. And thank God that you can see the potential, the beauty, the creativity, and you're able to get them to a point where they can get it out. So I just want to say personally, thank you, because a lot of those kids are forgotten about and swept under the rug and slipped through the cracks. And because they have somebody like you with your ingenious way of teaching. Tell us about that, how you incorporate the cultural aspect into the educational and creative aspect into the educational process.
Well, true. If you're talking about just basic English language mechanics, and you're talking about learning a verb from a pronoun or an adjective from an adverb, you can learn that reading Langston Hughes or Zora Neale Hurston.
Right.
You can learn that reading Dr. Martin Luther King. Right. You can learn about rhythm and structure and meter. And so it's important that we incorporate something that's familiar to spark that interest. And a lot of times what I noticed is they're so caught up in, oh, that sounds so familiar. You know, how dare we read Ralph J. Bunch, you know, this thick.
Right.
And by the time they get to the middle of the book, they realize, wow, you know, I know these streets, right? I know these schools, and I know that noun and that adjective and that adverb, right? I know that object. So yeah, I see the difference.
Right. And it's important that they're able to see themselves in their learning.
Yes.
Because I know I work in the system as well at an after-school program, and I'm very disappointed in the curriculum, very disappointed. So I admire you for being able to bring what you bring to the table and to the environment.
Oh, thank you. I also believe in supporting local artists.
Yes.
So those poets who inspire or who motivate, I also incorporate them into the lesson plans.
Wow.
You know, so they will read some Sandra Laraine Coleman or some Nikki Black.
Right.
They will read some A.K. Tony or Alice the Poet.
Right.
I will incorporate that also.
Yeah, because I do the same thing. I incorporate Alice the Poet
Thank you.
in my little curriculum. What room I have, you know. I take every advantage.
Yeah.
You know, I believe in running the programs, but I do run them my way.
Right.
So, yeah, I agree 100%.
Yes.
Now, you have a book.
Yes, I do.
This is volume number 6.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Parallel of Latitude.
Parallel of latitude is actually that imaginary circle around the Earth's surface. Now, it says volume 6, but it's actually the 10th volume of poetry that I put together. And I number these 10 million stories based on code, based on date. Some may be based on whim at this point. Story number 8 million. But there are volumes 1 through 5, and then 5A, 5B, 5C, and it goes on like that. This one in particular was kind of nudged out of me because I hadn't written anything in a couple of years, and I try to do at least one connection or collection. Well, connection too, right?
Right.
One collection every few years, and it had been a while, and it was kind of nudged out of me. And I like it. I mean, you know, no ego.
Right.
But I really, it was cathartic.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot that came out.
Yeah.
And
it's
fun.
Yes. Yeah, I agree 100%. And a lot of the poems and stories and a lot of what's in there I could relate to as an artist, as a woman, as a human being. You know, it was a lot that I could relate to on so many levels, you know, not just the poetess or creative level, but just being, you know, spiritual. You know, it was a lot. You had a lot going on in that book. Excellent, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And that's funny you would say that about being able to really connect with it. I got an email from a woman in Germany who is a few generations ahead of me who could see her in some of the poetry. And I thought, how wonderful is that?
Yeah.
That we have this connection over miles, over cultures, over years.
Right.
But she was able to connect.
And see, that's what art does.
Yes,
it connects.
Definitely.
And having said that, let's have an Alice the Poet poem.
Oh, okay. I just so happen to have one right here. One of your favorites in this book.
Yes.
You ever have one of those moments where it gets heavy?
Yes.
And it was one of those heavy, heavy mornings. And every morning I get up in prayer. Every morning I'm grateful for another day. And then you go outside and something happens, right? And it takes it away. Well, this put everything in a perspective on that morning. This is story number 8, Communion. Something beyond a physical feeling, a golden awe and inspiration. The Creator makes it all possible, working this with that and these with those. Buildings bridge for she who forgets and he who doesn't. His head bent low, the world silent. Even bees stop buzzing and birds perch in quiet meditation, stillness. This is a holy moment. Divinely designed. He is praying, so grateful for the meal before him that she can see his words as light as spirit rising. How dare she, mere human, so insignificant in the significance of this moment, not be grateful for all that she has, all that he has left in this world and housed in a grocery basket sitting next to him. She prays with him to the God in them from across the street in her car at the stop sign. She is grateful for the meal before him. She is grateful for the morning's mercy and promise. She is grateful that she can see his words as light, as spirit rising.
Wow. Wow. I love that piece. And I can see it.
I can still see him.
Yeah. And the reason why I can see it is because you told me that story way before you wrote the poem. But when you wrote the poem, I could really see it. And I've seen it.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it the way you saw it.
Yeah.
So
we need those reminders.
We do.
You know? And I think it's our job as poets or artists.
Right.
To remind once we've been reminded. Pass
Exactly.
on that wisdom.
Yeah, the information and let people know that there are sacred moments.
Yes.
And we all need to be thankful for each and every
yes,
moment. Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you for the reminder. I want to talk about, I know you do, you've been to a couple of workshops and the process of writers going to workshops. What do you think the importance is of poets, artists, writers, you know, not just, because it's not just about the writing.
Right.
It's about other things to give our audience a little bit of insight about workshops and what kinds of workshops. And
workshops are important. I mean, to the craft, they're important. So whatever you do, if you build,
right,
you want to learn,
right,
and so you want to grow, and so you go and you train.
Yes.
You know, or if you run track, you know, you continuously train. Well, when you write, you're training the brain.
Right.
Right. You're connecting with that spirit.
Right.
And so it's something that you continuously have to work on it. And it's with anything. If you want it to grow, you're going to nurture it.
Right.
It's important. It's definitely important. But saying that, I say choose your workshops carefully.
Right.
So you have to be around those who are going to nurture your art and nurture your growth and provide constructive criticism, but constructive.
Right.
Right? Someone who does not agree with your ideas or does not agree with your way of putting forth your ideas, that might not be the type of workshop for you.
Right. Right.
So if you feel it, I would say go and sit in a couple around the city, you know, just check them out and see what you feel and say, oh, you know, I could probably grow with this. Well, okay, then that's the one you work with,
right.
You know, which is why I'm the Mert Park poet to the bone.
Exactly.
Because it's something that you feel when you're there, and it's a place that nurtured me,
right.
That pushed me,
right.
And that did provide that constructive criticism that would tear a poem in two and say, go back and redo it.
Yeah.
That's what I needed.
Right. Right. Yeah, Lamert Park.
Yes.
Most definitely. Yes. And one of the things that I found in doing, you know, being an artist and being, because there are people that don't workshop, but that call themselves poet. Now, Lamert Park gave you your name.
Right.
Alice the Poet.
Right.
So talk about, because you do a lot of research. You study different poetry forms. You have a favorite poet. You know, I mean, and I've learned a lot from you. So talk about how not just when you don't do those things.
You know, the person that comes to mind is Basho, right? Who sat in that hut and wrote all of those haiku. You know, or Richard Wright, who laid in that bed and, you know, wrote 4,000 haiku, and who was too sick to really go and workshop, to go out and workshop. So for those, I think once you get to a certain place, I don't know how to say it, because I don't want to say don't workshop.
Right.
But if you got that strong footing, if you have those strong roots,
right.
And if you have 20, 30 years of workshopping and studying in there,
right.
You might be able to get away with 4,000 poems and not have, you know.
Right.
But I think when you are definitely stepping out there and experimenting and learning and,
right.
you know, broadening,
Right.
then workshops are really good for it.
Yeah, because I've seen people do haiku, but they don't really know what a haiku is. They think just because they heard somebody do a short poem, and they'll go write a short poem, that it's a haiku, and that's not. There is a measurement
Yes.
to haiku.
Yes.
Tanka,
Yes.
rectometer,
Yes.
diamante.
Yes.
You know, there's a measurement. So even if you don't go to workshops, you can go on the internet.
Yes, libraries are always free. They're still free. You might pay 30 cents for a late book, but I mean, come on.
Right.
It's out there. I won't mention the name of I won't mention the name, but we disagree when it comes to haiku.
Right.
And so one of their journals, you know, probably will never carry out as a poet. Not, okay, fine. Because if it's not 575, and you can call that beat, that meter, those feet, you can call them whatever you want to call them, but if it's not that 575, it's not haiku.
Right.
Right? Call it something else. Be a Mary Baraka.
Right.
Call it loku.
Right.
It's a short form. You know, be like Alice the poet and call it the ooh.
I love that.
Like boo, right? It's a short form, though, but don't take something, change it, and then say, you know, this is what it is. No, that's not what it is.
Right, because it's not true to what was created originally.
Right. Keep it true to the original.
Right.
You know, don't new and improve.
Right. Right.
That doesn't work.
You can't improve on perfection.
Exactly.
So, having said that, let's have another Alice the Poet gem.
Okay. This one, because so many people were asking about it, this was in one of my first collections, Queen of Alliteration.
Yeah.
Which was 7-8 years ago. And so many people ask about it, and that one is no longer in print.
Okay.
That I reprinted it in this new volume 6. Queen of Alliteration is what they call me. I'm Alice, the artisan, and author of an anthology on agility of altruism and abstract. Attentive audiences are awed at my aptitude for articulate acrobatics and astonishingly abundant amounts of ad-libbed adverbs. I offer inspired idiosyncrasies of idiom, illustrate the illegal ills of ignoble institutions who play interplanetary invader games behind iron curtains, while ignoring the injured innocents infected by inferior inoculations, impurities, infestations, inflated interests, and intolerable isms instrumental in the introduction of insurgents. Hear the magnitude of the message of my meter. Meditate on the method of my mode meant to move, make the myopic mindful of the Most High, and multiply the mental majority. Determined dreadlock daughter of a drummer and a dreamer in the diaspora, it is my destiny to dabble in divinely designed daily dazzle. My duty to dig deep in diachronic dictionaries, dancing from daybreak to dusk, disarming diatribe while deliberately delivering delirium doses of dexterity. Drawing diagrams and dropping definitions of dialect like Dickens calling diction the dress of thought. With thoughtful theatrics, I thread thrilling theme and threefold theory through my thesaurus, thwarting throwback theocracy with third-eye theology. Student of the science of exactitude. In the evenings, I spend my energy evoking emotion, enlightening, elevating, emancipating each eardrum and earshot with the ease of expert, eloquent edification, excluding ego. Evident in my experimental expressive English, be the eclectic eccentricity of me, even ebonics be echoing and enchanting epics until empty of endless ease, I ease into felicity. For the fact remains, this is not fad nor fallacy for those familiar with me, but a fertile field of flamboyant, fine-spun, freeform fantasy and foot-stumping funky frequency. Fuel for the fire functioning as the fundamental formula for freedom. Every woman I am, kindred kinky kinswoman, speaking Kikuyu and Kenya, or kicking kalimba kettle drum rhythms of karmic kismet sensation, but I'm keen on kindness. Keeping the key to kaleidoscopic kingdom in my keystroke learning, litany leads the way to lofty-less lodgings of laughter as literary logic literally lights bulbs and lyrical lingo lingers long after last words. Growing gatherings go gaga as I, the grammar guru, grounded in the guide to graceful growth, gallop through green gardens gathering glossomatics with golden rules and going to great lengths to glorify my gift of gab from God. Praising him privately and publicly, in prayer and poetry, presenting parables, printing pent-up pressure on parchment, pointing out the passageway to peace and paradox. Question and or quote me on the quality in this quantity, but feel the quickening quake of the queen as I quantum leap into my next quest.
Woo! That poem is awesome. And see, I don't know how you do it.
That one was inspired because I didn't start out like that.
Okay.
That one was, you know how you get those poems, My Color Is Yours, okay? You know how you get those poems that are truly inspired?
Yeah.
And you work on them until they're done. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that you work 24 hours around the clock and
Right.
you got to get up and go to work the next day. Go with your bags and your journal, but work on that poem. And that was
Right.
one of those.
Wow.
Truly inspired.
It's beautiful. And you was alliterating.
Well, Queen of Alliteration is what they call
Yes,
it.
it is, because I don't know anybody who can alliterate the way you do. Nobody comes to mind. I've never heard anybody do it the way you do it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I enjoy the challenge.
Yeah, I can see. You can tell, but you meet the challenge and then surpass it. I've heard people alliterate, and it's like, what are they talking about? Everything you say makes sense. I understand it, no problem. I can understand why people like that poem.
I was invited to teach in Atlanta because of that poem. I know, huh?
Wow.
That's my resume.
Excellent. And you've also been to Jamaica because of your poetry.
Yes. Honey, what a poem can do for you.
Okay.
It was the V103 Jamaica Tourist Board poetry competition. And I submitted. Why not? You know, it was
Right.
free. I submitted. And I got a phone call a couple of weeks later. And I really did not believe it. It was a radio station called me.
Right.
And I don't think I believed it until the tickets got there. And it had the itinerary. So I read at the Calabash Literary Arts Festival in Treasure Beach, Jamaica. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. It was magical. It was inspiring. It was, I want to do it again.
Right,
you know?
right.
It was wonderful. What a poem can do. And I think that's one of the things that kind of pushes me on. When I'm ready to, forget it, let me
Right.
move.
Then something like that
Yes.
happens and puts it all in perspective
Yes.
for you. Because I honestly believe that you are where you're supposed to be with this whole creative writing journey. And I mean, you've helped so many people. You inspire so many people. You inspire me. You know, you push me to my limits, so, and I'm thankful because I've grown. Even Roberti has said, I've grown in leaps and bounds, but I know that you are partly responsible for my growth because I listen to you, I work with you, I hear you. I've been to your workshops. So I said, thank you.
Oh,
Thank
well,
you
thank
very
you.
much. And
although it takes all of us working together to
Yes.
grow strong. We've all grown.
Yes.
And we've grown because of each other.
Right.
So. But I accept that. Thank you.
Yes. And I would like, before we leave, I would like for you to give an example of a haiku and then an example of a ooh that you created.
Oh, okay. Well, haiku is an ancient form of Japanese poetry, and it's 3 lines in the poem. The first line has 5 syllables, second line has 7 syllables, and the third line has 5 syllables, or pauses, or breaths, or beats. It's 5, 7, 5.
Right.
So this is haiku number 17. Out of nowhere, bam, shit happens. That's what they say. It's part of living. So that is a haiku. And now I'm going to find an ooh. So let's do ooh number 2. Ooh number 2 was inspired by a conversation that I had with another poet. I don't have to hate you in order to love me. Truth be told, I have to love me in order to love you.
Wow.
So that's an ooh.
That's an ooh. And so an ooh came out of I don't want to say conflict because.
Well, I was going to say conflict.
Okay.
It actually did come out of a conflict. We had conflicting views
Right.
on what a haiku was.
Right.
So, because this society had a 30-year history,
Mm-hmm.
and here I am with a poet with a something-year history,
Right.
and an individual, I felt as if I was being a bit bullied.
Right.
On my own blog. I
Right.
mean, I write my blog not for the accolades, I write it for me. So I felt like, I was being bullied on my own blog, and my response to that was, no, I'm still not feeling it. And actually the blog title was, nah,
Right.
still not feeling it.
Right.
Because a haiku is a haiku is a haiku.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Blue is blue is blue is blue.
Right.
Just because you call it green does not mean
That's
it's
not right.
and so out of that conflict did come a new form of poetry, because I don't stay stuck in the conflict. No, we disagree. I don't feel it.
Right.
Thank you for reading my blog.
Right. Right.
But nah, I'm not feeling it. I look to Langston Hughes, who wrote those 4,575.
Right.
And I look to Matsuo Basho, who they call the master
Of haiku, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Right?
Yes, exactly. And on that note, I just want to say thank you so much for blessing the studio, blessing me, blessing our audience. It has truly been an honor to sit across from you and interview you. Thank you so much, Alice the Poet.
Thanks for having me, Sil.
You're welcome. I love you.
Love you too.
This has been Indie Encounter, a journey into the world of independent creators of art and artistic expression. I want to thank today's guest, Alice the Poet, for sharing her voice and flair for poetic storytelling with us. If you want to find out more about today's guest, Google her or Leimert Park Poets. Check out our website here at PasadenaCommunityNetwork.com and select the Arroyo channel. Thanks to our director, Lilia Fernandez Gaspar, and crew for making the show possible. Thanks to all of you. We hope to see you here again when we embark on another Indie Encounter.